Hey guys, my name is Yasmina and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I want to recommend to you guys some really great non-fiction books that I've read over the years. I do read quite a bit of non-fiction actually, but there's not a lot of books that I feel like I really want to recommend to you guys after I finish them. You know, for example, I read a lot of writing craft books, and that's not really something I can just recommend to you guys unless you're writers. You'll probably not be interested in that. So these are just more general non-fiction books that I've personally loved and I think you guys would like as well. So without further ado, let's get into the recommendations. I'm gonna try to divide this into a few sections. So first off, we're gonna start with funny books, or books that made me laugh aloud on the bus or in public multiple times. The first one I want to recommend to you guys is called This Is Going to Hurt by Adam Kay, The Diaries of a Junior Doctor. This was amazing. I read this super fast, or I listened to it super fast. I do tend to listen to sped up versions of audiobooks, mainly 1.5 or even sometimes double the speed, so maybe that's why I finished this really quickly. But this was hilarious. I laughed aloud so many times while listening to this book. So basically, Adam Kay used to be a doctor, a junior doctor, and this is his diaries of the first year as a junior doctor. He has a way with words that just makes everything funny. I'm sure he only included all of the funny bits that happened to him during that year, of course. It's not like every day was that eventful in the way he made it seem, but he also narrates the audiobook himself, and I think that definitely adds to the experience. So I would recommend, if you can, to listen to the audiobook of this. It was just hilarious and also full of interesting facts and sometimes scary facts about the medical industry. Definitely recommend this one if you're interested at all in what I just said. The other funny book I want to recommend to you guys is called Is It Just Me by Miranda Hart. I actually read this a while ago, years ago, but I got rid of the book because I don't think I would ever read it again, but now I kind of regret it because I don't have it to show you guys. But this is Miranda Hart's letter to her 18-year-old self, kind of like advice from her much older self. And if you don't know, Miranda Hart is a British comedian. She has a show called Miranda, and she's just all around a really funny person. I actually really love the show Miranda. I watched it years and years ago when I was younger, and then I found out that she had written this book and I read it, and again I laughed aloud so many times. She's just really funny, and that permeates into her writing. Yeah, it was just funny, full of heartfelt life lessons and funny incidents. She's one of those people where things just happen to her in the most ridiculous ways, and the way she handles them is inspirational but also very hilarious, so definitely recommend this one. And the third book that made me laugh aloud is called Diary of a Bookseller by Sean Bithell. So Sean Bithell, the writer, is a bookseller himself, and he owns this independent bookshop called The Bookshop in, I think it was the south of Scotland. And this is just his daily accounts of what goes on in this small bookshop. And this is a bookshop in a really small town in Scotland. So I wouldn't have imagined that such a place would be so eventful, but if everything in here is true, and I'm pretty sure it is, then it's kind of crazy and it's hilarious. Again, he has a very funny way of writing these accounts. It's just full of weird and beautiful characters, and also, you know, what it takes to own an independent bookshop. He also lives on top of his bookshop. A lot of people in his life also help run this shop with him, and it was just wonderful. And especially if you like books, I mean, I don't know why you were here if you didn't like books. I think you will really love this. It was very warm-hearted and obviously really hilarious. The next section of books I want to recommend to you guys is very opposite from the funny books. These are really impactful, important books that really left a mark on me and that talk about very serious topics. And so this might be hit or miss with a lot of people, but I still want to recommend to you guys some hard-hitting non-fiction books that I've read and that kind of really made me think a lot after finishing reading them and while I was reading them. But I still think about these books even though it's been years since I read some of these, and so that's why I think they're very impactful. So I will start with two books about the same topic, and that topic is North Korea. So we have Nothing to Envy, Real Lives in North Korea by Barbara Demick, and then In Order to Live, A North Korean Girl's Journey to Freedom by Yeonmi Park. These are amazing. If you're interested at all in the history and the topic of North Korea, these are fantastic, but I would more highly recommend this one. This one is a more unbiased journalistic approach to the topic, whereas this is I'm not sure if it's an autobiography or if someone else wrote it for her, but it is the actual account of a young girl escaping from North Korea and her memories growing up in North Korea, whereas this is a collection of interviews from people who have escaped North Korea. So it doesn't follow one single person, and the author is a journalist, so it's not her account, which is why I think this is a more unbiased and real view of what really goes on there, whereas this, at times, I feel like it is definitely a bit biased, and even I suspected some parts were, I would say, exaggerated for dramatic effect. Every time the topic of North Korea comes up, I just have flashbacks of scenes that I read in these books, and so if you're at all interested in this topic, I would highly recommend both of these. The next book is also a collection of essays, and this is called The Good Immigrant. It is edited by Nikesh Shukla, but it is essays from 21 writers, Black, Asian, and minority ethnic writers in Britain. So these are essays all about immigration and what it's like to immigrate to a new country and the hardships of that, and also why Britain was a choice for a lot of these people, or not a choice in some cases, and how people treat them as immigrants. I am an immigrant myself. I live in Denmark, but I am Romanian, so I definitely saw bits of myself in some of these essays, but nowhere near what a lot of these people had to go through and their experiences. And so again, this is something that was very impactful to me, and maybe it's a more personal, like, soft spot for me because I can identify with this struggle, but totally recommend this, and I think it gives you a lot to think about. And the final section of nonfiction books I want to recommend to you guys today is the largest section. This is general nonfiction, mostly informational nonfiction, so a lot of facts or just general topics that I couldn't group into any other specific grouping. The first two books I want to recommend to you guys are by one of my absolute favorite nonfiction authors right now, because I am devouring these books by him, and that person is Bill Bryson. And I want to recommend to you guys two books. One is At Home and the other one is The Body. I listened to both of these on audiobook and they are just fantastic. They are both narrated by Bill Bryson himself. Oh my gosh, I love these books so much. I love his style of writing, and everything he writes about is so interesting. I always end up Googling things that he's talking about because I want to learn more about a specific thing that he just mentions randomly in these books. And sometimes he goes a lot more in depth on different topics that I might have had knowledge of in general, but then I learned so much from him and from these books. So the first one, At Home, is all about the history of the home. So for example, how every room in the house, the bedroom, the bathroom, the kitchen came to be. It goes all the way back in history and the first ever settlements that humans have had and what they looked like, and all the way up to present day. And it just covers such a wide variety of topics, and sometimes it even goes on tangents, but even those tangents are incredibly interesting. And again, his style of writing is also very funny, but I didn't put him in the funny category because these books are more serious, they're very factual, and so that's why I put him in this category. But the second one, The Body, I just finished listening to, and again, oh my gosh, this was fantastic. This was so insightful. So many things that I learned that I had no idea about that happen related to our bodies. I feel like he does a great job of introducing every single topic and letting you know all of the important facts, but then also a lot of adjacent, like, tangents that go along with it that are just more interesting and maybe fun, not necessarily just straight up facts. But he does have the straight up facts. This is also a very recent release. I think it came out this year or very late last year, so it's pretty up to date with the science that we have so far. I think he's a brilliant narrator and writer, so again, if you could listen to the audiobooks, I would definitely recommend that. The next book is called The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat by Oliver Sacks. So Oliver Sacks is a neurologist, and he has actually a bunch of books out, but this is the one that I've always been interested in, maybe because of the title. The title is just one story in this book. So again, it's kind of his account on weird maladies that he's come across in his life as a neurologist. And this book covers some really curious things that I've never heard about in my life before. This was just fantastic. I think I'll just read you the back because I think it does a better job than I would In his most extraordinary book, Oliver Sacks recounts the stories of patients lost in the bizarre, apparently inescapable world of neurological disorders. These are case studies of people who have lost their memories and with them the greater part of their pasts, who are no longer able to recognize people and common objects, whose limbs have become alien, who are afflicted and yet are gifted with uncanny artistic or mathematical talents. It was first published in 1985. Super interesting, also kind of funny in parts, and yeah, totally recommend this. Next book I have is a collection of essays by George Orwell, and this is called Down and Out in Paris and London. I really love George Orwell's writing. He is by far one of my favorite writers. There's just something about his style that is so approachable yet so literary and beautiful, and he just knows how to make words impactful. I'm not even talking about his fiction, I'm talking about his non-fiction. I've read a lot of his non-fiction. I prefer his non-fiction. Not that his novels aren't brilliant, but there's just something about the way he writes that really resonates with me, and so I absolutely love everything he's done. So this is his own account on life in Paris and London in the 1920s. On the back it says, George Orwell's vivid memoir of his time living among the desperately poor and destitute is a moving tour of the underworld of society. Written when Orwell was a struggling writer in his 20s, it documents his first contact with poverty, sleeping in bug-infested hostels and doss houses of last resort, working as a dishwasher in Paris, surviving on scraps and cigarette butts, living alongside tramps, a stargazing pavement artist, and a starving Russian ex-army captain. For me personally, I just love the way he tells stories, even true stories like these. He just has a way with words that I haven't found in anyone else before, any other writer, and so that's why he's one of my favorite, absolute favorite writers. Another fantastic writer that knows how to craft his words is Stephen King, and I want to recommend to you guys On Writing, a Memoir of the Craft by Stephen King. Now, although this is amazing if you're actually a writer, I think this can be read and enjoyed by anyone because it's not just a writing craft book, it is also an autobiography of Stephen King's struggle growing up and wanting to become a writer and everything that came with that. Again, this was super inspirational to me as a writer. The second half of the book is advice on writing craft, and the first half of the book is his autobiography. Even if you just read the first half, I would highly recommend this just to anyone. Two more books to recommend to you guys, both I read on audiobook. First one is The Year of Living Danishly by Helen Russell. I read this a long time ago actually. I think in one of the first years I moved to Denmark. This one obviously was appealing to me for that reason, but I had also heard that it was very funny, and indeed it is very funny. It was more again filled with really interesting facts about what it's like to live in Denmark. So Helen Russell is a British doctor. I'm pretty sure she's a doctor, but she moved to rural Jutland, so the middle of Denmark, because of her husband. I think he got a new job here, so they had to move, and it's about her experience again being an immigrant to Denmark and all of the wonderful and crazy things about this country. And so obviously that it was a very relatable read to me because I've experienced a lot of the things that she's talking about, but it's also filled with interesting facts about Denmark and living in Denmark that I hadn't really known about before. Like there's a whole section on flags and the politics of raising a flag in your own yard and things like that. It's just a bunch of stuff. And I would say even if you're not living in Denmark but you're just interested in Danish culture and lifestyle or want to travel there, I think this is definitely a book that you would really love. And I think the last book that I will talk about today is called Modern Romance by Aziz Ansari. Now, you might have heard of him before. He is also a comedian. I really enjoy his comedy. I watched a few of the shows that he wrote and also just his stand-ups. I think he's a really great guy. I read this book I think about 2 years ago, and it's all about how we love in the 21st century. It's a very factual book. He definitely did a ton of research for this, and there's a lot of statistics. But because he narrates this book as well, you can imagine it's very funny. Even the statistics that he has to read aloud, somehow he makes them seem funny or just enjoyable to listen to, even when he's literally just narrating numbers. It was a very interesting look on dating in the 21st century and all the tools and things that exist to get people together, and also kind of sad at times. But again, really enjoyable to listen to because it's the author himself narrating it, and he's also a comedian. So once again, if possible, I would highly recommend listening to the audiobook. So that is it. Those were all of the nonfiction books I wanted to recommend to you guys today. I am constantly reading new nonfiction books, and so obviously I will make a part 2 of this video when I have accumulated enough other books to recommend to you guys. But yeah, I hope you found this video interesting and I hope you'll pick some of these books up for yourself. And if you do, or if you have read any of them, please let me know what you thought. And if you yourself have any good recommendations for something that you think I might enjoy, also please leave them down in the comment section and I will make sure to check them out. So that is it for me today, guys. Hope you have a great day and I'll see you next time. Bye!